Hey y'all, new day, new verse as we continue on into Jacob chapter 2. Today we're starting at verse 5 and kind of going to where he has for it. But we're under the section that's kind of a warning against prejudice, in the NLT version. And, we talked a little bit about this yesterday, but I want to keep going on into it because, this is about the law that sets us free. And it's one that I don't think we really take in fully. And in fact, I think to do so would require God alone. We could meditate it on all day and all night, all of our lives. And without the Spirit moving in us to give us this wisdom, we only have the text. I think it's why you have that subgroup of people that has, and I don't mean a subgroup, I mean if you're following out style of, evolutionary tree kind of thing, or family tree kind of thing, this other group over here that goes as far as John the Baptist, but doesn't see the light of Christ. That Spirit in us, His Spirit moving in us, making us alive and animate, igniting the fire within and letting us burn for Him. Being that lamp on a lampstand, being that city on a hill. But let's get into it and have some fun, starting at verse 5. Here we go. Listen to me, dear brothers and sisters. Hasn't God chosen the poor in this world to be rich in faith? Aren't they the ones who will inherit the kingdom He promised to those who love Him? But you dishonor the poor. Isn't it the rich who oppress you and drag you into court? Aren't they the ones who slander Jesus Christ, whose noble name you bear? Yes, indeed, it is good when you obey the royal law as found in Scriptures. Love your neighbor as yourself. But if you favor some people over others, you are committing a sin. You are guilty of breaking the law. For the person who keeps all the laws except for one is as guilty as the person who broke all of God's laws. For the same God who said you must not commit adultery also said you must not commit murder. So if you murder someone but you do not commit adultery, you have still broken the law. So whatever you say or whatever you do, remember that you will be judged by the law that sets you free. There will be no mercy for those who have not shown mercy to others. But if you have been merciful, God will be merciful when He judges you. I think the reason I wanted to go this far down and just finish off the section is because as I found myself in the prayer closet this morning, I was just reciting the Lord's Prayer. Like what came to my heart is knowing what He needed. I just kept saying the Lord's Prayer, digging into what each individual part of it meant. The law that sets us free is the law that says through the Son. None gets through the Father except through the Son. We are set free by this place of mercy. The Shema, which we've been talking about in depthly here, and to love others as you love yourself. When you show favor to one group over another, the question is why? If you're showing favor to the rich, are your motives to get something out of them? If your favor is toward the poor, are you trying to overcorrect for those who unjustly rule for the rich? Because we have this tendency, and in the United States, in the West, we had this middle class for the longest time. And with a lot of choices, it's slowly kind of moving towards the haves and have-nots. And it always drives me nuts seeing this. And he's going to go into it farther down and has a little bit before of, you have somebody who needs a hand and you just walk past instead of doing it. That, I want to make sure I have mine. And this is constant worldly way of doing it. And I don't think that's the point. In fact, quite the opposite, I've argued. Because I think verse 13 is kind of the crux of what keeps this entire idea together. That there will be no mercy for those who have not shown mercy to others. But if you have been merciful, God will be merciful to you. Forgive us as we forgive others who trespass against us. I like the use of trespass in the King James Version because, what is the trespass? When someone is where they're not supposed to be. When they do something against you that they're not supposed to do. But you're merciful into place. They came here and did something I didn't want. Well, I'm going to try and show them love and mercy, not because it is deserved or earned, simply because God has shown it to me. And perhaps they don't know. The poor, the fiscally poor, as well as those who are poor in spirit, have the opportunity to be rich in faith. Because they know they need Him. We know we need Him. Because it's not about what's in your account, it's about where your soul is. Where your nefesh is. If your whole being thinks that you can make it on your own, you're sadly mistaken. You won't. And that's not trying to condemn. That's talking as somebody who did their damnedest to try it. And God humbled me. And I'm glad he did. Because when we try to do it on our onesies all alone, we tend to get bitter towards those who, well, they didn't help us, so why should I help them? That's because you think you're doing it alone. It's easy to become embittered against others when you think you're the only one doing it, when you think you're the only one with hardships, when you think you're the only one with difficulties. Because we don't really think about the difficulties and the trials and the tribulations and the storms of others. We simply go, well, I have this knife in my back from this, and this person betrayed me here, and all of these different things happen to me. And we don't realize that everyone is going through some difficulties. The difficulties range all across the board. But we're not really merciful to each other enough to understand it. We're not really merciful enough to each other to grasp that, oh, they're having a difficult time. No, they're having a difficult time. Hey, I'm having a difficult time. So we start measuring each other's cup of suck, saying, well, no, see, I've suffered more than you have. No, I've suffered more than you have. So we're going to have a pity party Olympics to see whose life sucks more? That seems both childish and a complete waste of time. It is literally, no, my toy's bigger. My toy's shinier. Who cares? We all have difficulties. We all have trials. We all have storms. It's the understanding that we need him. Remember what we went over yesterday. The Beatitudes. Blessed are those who are poor in spirit and know how much they need him. We need him. We need to show the mercy, not because it's one of those, it's a balancing act. No. We need to on a different kind of level. It's not to settle an account. It's because we have been shown undeserved mercy. As I believe it was Paul who put it, when we were still sinners, God showed his love in that he died for us. When we were useless to anyone, ourselves, him, or anything else, he died in our place, was risen again so that we may have true life by believing in him. That's the law. No one gets through the Father except through the Son, the blood of the Lamb. He dies in our place, and we accept that mercy. We accept him as Lord over our lives and become a bondservant. We become his, because we are always his to begin with. The pot does not animate itself. The clay does not tell the potter what to do. It shouldn't, at least anyway. It's supposed to be made into a pot or a vessel. It's supposed to be made into what the potter wishes it to be. And we spend so much of our time fighting this. We spend so much of our time fighting love and fighting mercy and fighting kindness and fighting goodness and doing everything we can not to be merciful. We will do everything we can to ignore the fruits of the spirits and not live them out, or the fruits of the Spirit. Sorry, that S decided to come out of nowhere. Yay. We bear the fruits of the Spirit when we're in a relationship with him. The goodness, kindness, peace, patience, self-control, love. All of these different things that the Torah has no rule against. But we get to show them. That we get to get rid of bitterness and hatred and deceit and all the negative ways the world does things. We can get rid of them. We can place them before him and say, Lord, I don't want to be what I design me to be. I want what you designed me to be. You are the potter. I am the clay. Mold me. That's it. The verse 13 there really is a pinnacle for me. Because he's talking about, well, if you break one law, you break them all because you've broken the law. You're just as guilty as somebody who's broken them all, rather. So it makes me think perhaps it's not about judging who has broken fewer laws or more laws. Well, I kept all 613 of them. Yeah, we have a parable of that in Matthew, remember? Or an example of it. Person said, well, teacher, I've obeyed all of those laws since my youth. What should I do now? Well, sell all your things. Come and follow me. And he walks away dejected because his things have a hold on him. Because we get into these places of things and stuff and what have you, and because we worry about our things and our stuff and what have you, we're not able to be merciful to those who are near us. I can own my own whoops on this one for perhaps. There were a couple people that admittedly I had no idea who they were. They just pulled up in front of our house in rather expensive vehicles that didn't exactly blend into the neighborhood and proceeded taking photographs. my first reaction was, why are you here? Like, don't take pictures of my property. It made me understand why so many people get frustrated when a camera is shoved into their face. Just like, I have no problem with my face being seen. I want to know what you're doing near my stuff, near my property. Because it's the human reaction, right? It is the flesh that we wrestle against. And the first reaction, what I've heard from many of those I know, is like, yeah, I probably would have been out there with a gun. That's how I know I hang with Americans. To try and get a laugh here. I didn't want to, though. Mostly because those who live by the sword die by the sword, and that's not a good decision to do. More than that, though, I just wanted to know who they were. And when I found out one of their names, it was nice to know. I greeted them. I was glad to talk about how beautiful the weather was. Because I wanted to see them. I wanted to get an opportunity to know not just why they were there, but perhaps something more about them. To get into that friendship, that interesting place. Yay for dropping things. I wanted to understand. And to understand someone, really understand them, you have to come at it from a place of mercy. And the reason I say that is because if I had gone from an example of just, oh, they're here casing the property, or here they're just thieves, or they're going to do something like that, I would have wanted to chase them off and be done with them. I wouldn't have seen who they actually were. I wouldn't have the opportunity to show that God is gracious, and God is kind and loving and merciful. Yes, I wasn't the only one in the neighborhood keeping an eye on them, which I found at least interesting, because it is a place where God dwells. He's welcome here, in every way, shape, or form. If that means he has to cast everything not of him out, not only do I want him to do it, I beg him to do so. Because I want to be holy and completely his. I want everywhere I go, every place I put my feet, to be holy and completely his. As in keeping with his word, wherever you go, he will be with you. I want that kind of intimate relationship. To have it, I need to be as merciful as he has been merciful to me. And again, the word need there is very loaded in our language. It's not, again, a balancing. It's an I have to do it because it is part of my character. It wasn't once. Far from it. But it is part of my character now because he has changed me. Because he has made me better. He is making me whole. Perfected, not perfect. As Paul says, if I said I didn't wrestle with sin, I'd be calling God a liar. Because we still wrestle against the flesh, and that's why we have to put it before the Lord. That's why I love the name Israel and the image of him wrestling with God. Because if he's called a prince or one who wrestles with God, it's we are princes and princesses. We are wrestling against the flesh and putting it down so we can chase after the Lord. I know this is a lot of mixed verses for the imagery, but it's how it comes together. Being merciful for those who may not deserve it. But mercy is never done because it's deserved. Mercy is done because it is the character of the person who shows it. It is in the character of God to be merciful. It is in the character of God to hand people over to their own choices when they eventually turn their backs on him. It's the Old Testament. It's a wrath of God this and smiting this and oh, woe is that God is not Zeus. Yahweh does not arbitrarily throw lightning bolts because he's pissed, horny, or bored. See every other major religion, except the big three. God is consistent, the same yesterday, today, and forever. When he hands people over to the choices of their actions, he's handing them over to the consequences of their actions. They constantly want to be filled with hate, destruction, damnation. God will say, okay, you want your will to be done rather than mine? Cool. Here you go. I'll be here. And then he saves his remnant every time. When he handed over the northern kingdom of Israel, he saved his remnant. When he handed over Judah, he saved his remnant. When he has handed over every nation to the consequences of their actions, he always saves his remnant. And so a day of the Lord is both a day of rejoicing and sorrow. Yea, that God is consistent to his character, sorrow for those who wanted nothing to do with him or his character. Why would there be mercy if we have not been merciful? I mean, if we decided that the actions we choose to take are ones to introduce suffering to others, by hating them, by loathing them, by being angry and constantly bitter, when the Word says those are the very things we are supposed to be getting rid of. Well, even in Ephesians. It's either Ephesians, Galatians, or Philippians. They're all really beautiful and point out so much that we need to be laying down us. We need to be putting it at the foot of the throne so that we can be merciful, so that we can be loving. Because God said it himself through Jacob. But if you have been merciful, God will be merciful when he judges you. If you live by the law that sets you free through the Son, then an intimate relationship with the Son, communication, devotion, what is required for any relationship to work, time together, when in those places, a greater connection is formed. So that we're not just reading 1,000-plus-year-old text. We're letting it read us. We're letting him read us. And make us anew. Psalm 139, search me, O Lord, and know my soul. See if there be any hurtful way in me, and lead me into everlasting life. I'm still working on learning all the coordinates. As I like the story. I want to live out the mercy. I want to be able to say, okay, yeah, I may fail, but God is the one who covers me. So that if I drop the ball, I can live in mercy. As if you've broken one part of the law, then you're just as guilty as somebody who's broken all of it. If you're merciful, if you're loving, if you love your neighbor as yourself, whether it be rich or poor, young or old, male, female, weak or strong, loving as he loves, because we are all on even keel before him. We are all in the same place, fallen short of the glory of God, have sinned and need him. That's the starting place. We all need him. And he knows it. And he died for us so that we may truly live. So when I think about this section about, the rich or the poor and this and that or who we favor, my heart says, favor neither. I think back to Joshua when he and the armies of Israel approach and they see a commander. It's like, who are you? Commander in the Lord's armies. Are you for us or against us? Neither. I'm for the Lord. So the question then isn't who the Lord is for, it's are we for the Lord? Is Joshua and Israel for the Lord? Because the angel of the Lord doesn't pick a side. He's on God's side. Shouldn't we do the same? And if we're choosing to be on God's side, if we're choosing his way to do it, then aren't we following the law that sets us free? One of complete and utter dependence on him. Relational dependence, needing that cloak thrown over us so we may be protected. I mean, there's a reason the imagery is so rich there. It's like, I believe it's Joel. You were naked, and I covered you with my cloak. I raised you. I brought you in. I covered you in gems. And then you started whoring yourself. And we're not supposed to do that. We're supposed to be in that intimate relationship, covered by his cloak and chasing and holding after him, resting in the lap of our Abba. Our good, dear, loving Father. Our Daddy. The one who sees us, knows us, and loves us. The one who sees where we fail, knows when we do, and is merciful. Merciful enough to send his only begotten Son. And whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. So why do we not believe? Why do we not believe when he says, go sin no more, love? Because he's not doing away with the law. He's getting to a purer version of it. If you were, do not commit murder. I say if you were angry at somebody, you have committed murder. Don't commit adultery. You lust after someone, probably committed adultery in your heart. Actually have committed adultery in your heart. All of these things he covered. But we don't really think in the Sermon on the Mount, but we don't really take that in. That what we need to leave behind is the part of us that isn't us in the first place. The part of us that doesn't want to be merciful. The part of us that doesn't want to love. The part of us that wants to demand of God that we get to set the stage, the rules, and the play. rather than realizing that we are key players in not just our own story, but everyone else's. A single thread in a tapestry does not see the whole thing. Yet the tapestry requires each thread to make itself complete. The reason I use this image is because we don't know the effects we have. God knows where He puts us. God knows the situation He has us go through for a reason. Because it's about trust. It is about relational trust, relational dependence. And that's why I fully believe it is the poor who have been chosen to be rich in faith. Because when you cannot rely on the things of this world, you learn very quickly the only one you can depend on is God. And I mean big D depend on. I'm not talking leaning on your brothers and sisters and asking for help. I'm talking the only one who will never fail you is God. And what if we, just for a moment before we close here, what if we took that idea and held it out? That God will never fail us. People probably will. Inevitably, at some point they will. Because we are not perfect. And so, if you go at it just with the expectations of, well, I don't want anybody to fail me, then when somebody does, it throws off your reality. If you know that God is the perfect one, who sees to all things, who will see to it, who will provide and never let you down, never leave you nor forsake you, then when people do, it's a reminder, not a place of condemnation. It's a reminder that we need Him. It's a reminder to be merciful because He has been merciful to us. Because what if we put the same what if God put on us the same expectations we put on others? Oh, now we're back to verse 13. But if you have been merciful, God will be merciful when judging you. That's the beauty of all of this, really. Do we condemn each other? Or do we say, hey, we all need God. We all need the blood of the Lamb to cover us, so that the angel of death may pass over us, to combine the imagery. If we want to truly live, we need to be in relationship with the one who makes us alive. And in being in relationship with the one who makes us alive, mercy is easier, because it's all that makes sense. Don't you want to condemn them for what they did? Why? I can condemn what they did, but why would I condemn them? I find it funny that I keep going back to a line out of Batman Forever, and it's funny how God will use everything to talk to us, especially since the word says quite similar. If you kill them, they don't learn nothing. Jim Carrey's Riddler to Tommy Lee Jones's Two-Face. Wants to put a gun to the back of Batman's head. Riddler stops him, said, nope, you kill him, he won't learn nothing. Yet we spend all of our time trying to kill those who don't know. And I'm not physically doing it. If you hate in your heart, you are guilty of murder. I'm talking the fact that we tend to kill each other either physically by shutting each other out, verbally by cutting each other down, or spiritually by trending somebody as hopeless and of no value. Behaviors and actions that eventually make people echo these thoughts and ideas until the only thing they're hearing is, oh, I must suck, I must be ugly, I must be fat, I must be dumb, I must be slow, I just me a dumbass. No, to all of the above. You are a child of the living King. You are a handmade work of Almighty God. The chemicals, the finite materials made up of you and me and all of us had to be created in supernovas, which means the Lord God cares more for the building blocks inside of you than He does for the stars, the moon, the sun, and the sky. About 14 supernovas. 7 to 14 supernovas to create all the chemicals that make us up, because anything better than iron, or heavier than iron, needs to be made in a supernova. Which means God was so interested in making you that He destroyed the system we are in several times before He made us. Before He made you. This is the Lord God whom we serve, the one who sees you, who knows every hair on your head, who counts every tear that falls from your eye. The same God who does the same for me knows the hairs on my head, the tears from my eyes, what is in my heart. And He wants all of us an intimate relationship with Him by choice. Our choice to go before the throne in trust and in love and in mercy and knowing that He is greater. So why don't we do that? Why don't we show it? When we truly get in us the fact that God is merciful, why do we not show the same mercy to others? When we fully get into us that God is love, why will we not love? And I would argue that if one does not love that intimately, one does not fully understand the love yet. But that's the point of the relationship, is to grow to know it more, deeper and more intimately each day as we chase after Him. All of this is a relationship invitation, a love letter saying, if you will but be merciful and learn and live and know that you are safe in the shelter of El Shaddai. We are covered under His wing. So let us use our lives to be merciful to others and welcome others in. As remember, all are invited to the party. God sorts out the ones who aren't wearing the wedding attire. The wheat and the chaff shall be gathered, to grow alongside each other, the wheat and the weeds, the wheat and the tares. Then, at the harvesting, it will be separated. Our job is not to tell God who He gets to save. Our job is to tell everyone that God saves and let Him do the rest. Because in true intimate relationship with our King, we were the world's way. We are now another, His way. And in the middle, the very event that changed us is Him. And if He's who changes us, then we long to show the mercy because He's the one who did it. We long to welcome others because only He can make us whole. I will see you guys, God willing, tomorrow as we pick up Faith Without Good Deeds. Because it is God changing us that makes us want to do it. And we'll get even more into that, God willing, tomorrow. I'll see you guys then. May His favor be upon you. Know that you are loved. And know that there is no mercy for those who have not shown mercy to others. But, I love those but God moments. But, if you have been merciful, God will be merciful when He judges you. Because remember, justice and mercy, two sides of the same coin. And if you're not sure which one to land on, that's why we ask Him. James 1:5 wisdom after all, y'all. I'll see you then.